So ActionSA's North West chairperson, Kgosi Kwena Mangope, joins us for his reaction to Premier Lazarus Mokgosi's State of the Province address. Kgosi, good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us. A lot of reaction, of course, to the Premier's State of the Province address. Can you talk to us about your views of how the Premier performed, how you rate that State of the Province address? Kgosi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can, ma'am. I can. Thank you very much.
Yes, please. So talk to us about your overall view of that address by the Premier.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. Today, Premier Kgosi Mokgosi delivered yet another State of the Province address. That was nothing more than a reiteration of empty promises, a hollow rhetoric, and a desperate attempt to mask the ANC's 30-year legacy of failure in the Northwest Province. The Premier's address was not only an insult to the intelligence of the people of this province, but also a stark reminder of how out of touch the ANC government is with the realities faced by ordinary citizens in this province. The embarrassing start to the SOPA, where the Premier could not even begin his speech due to a malfunctioning microphone, was a fitting metaphor for the ANC's governance in the Northwest Province. The chants of water and no sound from the gallery were not just a protest against the technical failures, but a cry of frustration from a province that has been failed by its leaders. This is the true state of the Northwest Province, a province plagued by broken infrastructure, rampant corruption, and a government that has long lost its moral compass. The Premier's speech was riddled with the same tired promises that have been repeated for decades. He spoke of the midterm development plan anchored by inclusive growth, job creation, and poverty reduction. These are the same buzzwords we have heard from every ANC Premier for the past 30 years.
Okay.
Yet,
yeah. Apologies, Kgosi. I want to get some of your I suppose, preferences of what you would have liked to have heard. I mean, a lot of the criticism that's come in on this day to the Premier's State of the Province address have been around even the plan that he puts forward to deal with unemployment, which is a massive crisis for the Northwest Province. Over 50%. I believe the unemployment rate sitting at 52%, which means in the Northwest, you have more unemployed people than you do have employed. What is it that the Premier should have said to that important matter for the province?
Well, in my view, the Premier ought to have addressed two basic issues that are a problem in the province. Service delivery is the first issue that I would have expected the Premier to emphasize one more time, because we have municipalities that are dysfunctional. Now, when municipalities are dysfunctional, obviously there will be no service delivery to the ordinary people on the ground. Issues like water, that is a very, very important issue that the Premier ought to have centered his address on, given the fact that it is a problem that is faced by the province, say 80% of the province. Malfunctioning of municipalities, this has been a problem in the Northwest. Now, we have been promised year after year that qualified people who are able to run municipalities would be employed in our municipalities, but that does not seem to be the case. It's a lip service that we get every time. You have mentioned something about unemployment. Unemployment is so high in the province, as you stated. I don't know why the Premier just spoke at, passing on this issue. He never mentioned unemployment, but he gave figures of projects that will give employment, but clearly no thorough thought has been given to this issue.
Yeah. You know, we've seen protests in areas like Zeerast, for instance, blocking of roads, and this is over the issues that you've raised around water. Dinokana, another area that has struggled with water for a long time. And interestingly, Dinokana actually meaning where there's little rivers, and yet a community that has no water. What I find particularly concerning, though, is you've got a province that has a thriving mining industry, and there's a question around where the opportunities are for the province to really start working with private sector to ensure that, if that is the right approach, to ensure that services are brought back. There's the massive, shortage in infrastructure development in the Northwest, roads in some areas in absolute decay.
Well, precisely, the Premier mentioned in passing again the collaboration between the Northwest Provincial Government and the mining sector in the province. But obviously, one could read in between the lines that that was just to appease, so to speak, some people who were there, who were invited to attend the SOPA address, because they have made an undertaking to improve some roads. One road is about 10 kilometers that was mentioned, and another road is about 20 to 30 kilometers that the mining company will pump money in to have that road repaired. But obviously, the mining sector, the mining companies will obviously want to improve roads where they are affected, their production is affected, and their business is affected. Now, we are talking here about the whole province as it is. Roads are terrible. I mean, if you were to travel, I was driving from where I'm staying in Mabatu to the legislature. I mean, the potholes are just, you cannot just imagine that people drive there every day. And would you want to tell me that no government official or no MEC is aware of the state of the roads in Mabatu? No, it cannot be.
I want to focus on healthcare, if you will, just a little bit. Just recently, there was a point where we were looking at, and it might have been 2 or up to 3 hospitals at the same time in the province that were unable to function, needing to evacuate patients because of flooding in some of those hospitals. I mean, an untenable situation where people travel far and wide actually to access healthcare. And I wonder if the Premier has given that enough attention on how we start looking at infrastructure around important buildings and services like our healthcare facilities.
Well, I'm glad that you are mentioning hospitals. Now, let me start off by one hospital that is really, I'm saddened by what the Northwest government decided on the Tusong Hospital in Itsoseng on your way from Mafikeng to Lichtenburg. That hospital, the buildings, there are no more buildings on the area where the hospital was. Now, recently, about a few weeks ago, you would have seen the MEC for health was in a hospital that was flooded. Now, I could not imagine that a province like the Northwest, with all the resources, that we could not foresee that the weather would be a problem as soon as the rain season comes, where hospitals are flooded and patients are obviously affected. And we are not only talking about one hospital, we are talking about clinics where medication is most of the time the medication is short in those clinics, understaffed, most of them. Let me give you an example. You were talking about Dinokana. Now, I come from Mutswedi, which is in the Ramusiri Mwilwa municipality, where where I was born and bred in Mutswedi. The Department of Health is supposed to to build a community health center there. We are stuck, and actually, as a matter of fact, I requested the MEC for Health today in the legislature before the formal proceedings started, that I would like to take him to the village to go and see, because there is no progress, only the foundation for the last 2 years. That project was meant to be completed in 2 years' time. Now, it is almost 2 years now, and that project has not moved an inch. Now, the MEC has promised to come and see the project, because definitely we are not going to be getting that project if we are not going to coerce him to come and see for himself what the state of the project is at.
Yeah, just as we close off, Kgosi Mangope, there's of course the question around the province having listened to the State of the Province address, and whether some agree to it or not. As we go further down the ranks into various municipalities, you do have the implementation of the order given by the Premier. Your message to those that are tasked with delivering services, your message to municipalities in the Northwest at this time?
About service delivery?
Yes, moving forward, yes, coming out of that SOPA.
Look, I would want to say, I think the only way that we are going to see service delivery from the municipalities is when the ANC government is out of power. Now, the ANC government has been in power for 30 years. We have not seen any service delivery given by the municipalities as they are mandated. Now, I don't think that we are going to see any improvement. The only improvement we will see from municipalities is when the ANC government is out of power. Now, I'm not saying this because I want to say it. I'm saying it because there's a lot of evidence. You look at the municipalities, what is happening in Madibeng municipalities. Yesterday, we had a meeting with our councillors in the different municipalities, and they were ventilating terrible things that are happening in those municipalities. I'm talking about the municipalities throughout the province, not only in Mafikeng or in Ramotseri. I'm talking about from Moretele, from Bujanala, right up to Ruth Mumbati municipalities. We are faced with a real challenge of municipalities. And the municipalities are an engine that is the only engine that I see that can give services to our people, because they are actually mandated to provide those services to our communities, particularly communities in the rural areas.
Yeah. Kgosi Kwena Mangope, we do really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Kgosi Mangope, of course, is ActionSA's provincial chairperson. They're responding to Lazarus Mokgosi's State of the Province address.